I think I kind of like Conquest. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing stupendously. Now, I've been thinking of late of some ways to bring you all some Conquest content during the current situation, without it being a bit too boring. And I decided it was about high time that I made a video to try and convince those of you out there who are still unsure on Conquest as to why you should pick it up. Now, as always, for the sake of transparency, this video was not paid for in any way by Para Bellum, and I am not being sponsored in any way to say this. However, I do help out the company from time to time as a part of their Vanguard scheme, so bear that in mind. However, these always will be my own personal views. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm always going to be really honest with my opinions and that sort of stuff. But yeah, without further ado, let's jump into 6 reasons that you should play Conquest: The Last Argument of Kings. Number 1. The void left in your heart where the world that was once lived. Conquest is a rank and flank style fantasy battle game that is very reminiscent of the old world. Now, I know a lot of you have got a gaping hole left in your heart from when that James Workshop fella let some dirty old rats throw a moon at the old world, and Conquest is the perfect game to fill that hole. The best part is it even has some old world vibes, and people from the old world era actually helped develop the game. Written by Riverhorse, Conquest was blessed with the touch of Alessio Cavatore, who brought you such great games as Wartime, Warmaster, and of course the Lord of the Rings strategy battle game. Need I also mention Kings of War? All these factors combined has just kind of led to Conquest being a darned fun game to play. But it's not just great rules design that Conquest has going for it, which brings me on to my next reason why you should play Conquest. The lore. One of the major factors that draws people to minigames is the lore behind the universe as well, and Conquest is no exception to this fact. Am I happy to tell you that this game has got so much darned lore that by the time you finish reading it all, you're going to need to have a nice long nap to help it all digest, and on top of that, you'll probably have some dreams of Conquest while you're at it too. Personally, I'm finding that the lore of games is actually meaning a lot more to me these days than it used to. I mean, I'm finding myself drawn a lot more to the narrative side of play than just, competitive or just playing for fun. So having good lore bases really helps me. And I'm happy to say that the team over at Para Bellum HQ have done a great job of all the lore of this universe. Masterminded by the wonderful Konstantinos and Stravos, this game is built lore first, miniatures second. There's a rich lore behind every faction in Conquest, with all sorts of politics coming into play. Even the factions that aren't even out yet have lore written that you can currently read, and you can see how they intermingle with all the current factions for Conquest. If you want to learn about the politics of 100 Kingdoms, or even a Dweghom Hold, well, go ahead and read it. But this all brings me on to the best part of the lore, and the fact that the game has a living world. Now, what's a living world, I hear you ask? Well, a living world means that us, the players, actually get to influence and have a say in how the lore of EA is developing. The first of the Living World events took part towards the latter half of last year and was done in collaboration with On the Tabletop. Every week the community got to vote to determine the outcome of a set of characters and figure out where their story was going to go. It did really well, and actually the community made some really surprising decisions in the words of Konstantinos himself. But this all leads on to the fact that the second Living World event has actually just started. And not to say that the last one wasn't important at all, but this one is actually a lot more impactful than the previous one. You see, we've known for a while now that the 5th faction that's going to be coming to Conquest is the Wadrun, and they're going to be released later this March. However, Para Bellum is actually giving us, the community, a say in which faction is going to be released after that. That's right, we're all getting to decide what we want the 6th faction in Conquest to be. Now that is a lot of power to give your community, and honestly that's something I actually really like about Para Bellum. It's just how involved they are with their community. Like, they actually care about all their players, they care about the competitive scene, they really want to hear your opinion on this sort of thing, which is a really kind of nice breath of fresh air. Make sure to head on over to their website after this video to give a read of the lore, and so you can have your say in what you want the next faction for Conquest to be. Cool lore shenanigans out the way, let's move on to the 3rd reasons why I think you should play Conquest: the rules. All the rules for all the game are available for free on their website. No paying for individual faction books, no paying for even the rule book. You can just go on their website and take a peruse through it all, see if you think the game is the core game for you, and figure out which faction you want. Heck, you don't even have to buy a core set or a starter set. You could just play the game using proxies if you wanted to for a while. Plus, there is the option of this beautiful hardback book that you can pick up, which to be honest, I really would recommend you do pick up if you enjoyed the game itself or just the lore behind it. The only thing you actually miss out on by not buying this is just some of the lore about the world. So none of the rules are locked behind any kind of paywall. The fact that all the rules are free means that you can theory craft and build your lists to your heart leisure before you have to fork out any of your hard-earned cash on any of the models. The rules themselves are simple and easy to learn, but have a great tactical depth to them, which is hopefully going to lead to a bustling competitive scene once competitive games can actually get started. On top of that, Para Bellum is actively releasing prize support for those who actually want to participate in tournaments. While playing Conquest, you'll be reminded of the good old days, of charging a fully kitted out unit of cavalry into a horde of skeletons, while falling in love with all the little bits that make Conquest unique from all the other mass battle games out there. Speaking of things that make the game unique, let's move on to my fourth point of why you should play Conquest, the miniatures. Let's start by taking a look at their plastic kits. Para Bellum's plastic kits have come on leaps and bounds since the game first came out. Now, does this mean that the older kits are bad? No, it's still some damn good plastic crack that's going to paint up really well and look really good on the battlefield. It just shows that Para Bellum is dedicated to improving this game, as well as the maximum potential that this game could actually reach. When it comes to the movement trays that you use for the game, they're not as convenient as Warhammer Fantasy Battles or as Kings of War, but to be honest, it by no means makes the game unplayable. The community's even got some great little tricks that you can use to help kind of deal with the jankiness. For the money that I've spent on the kits, I'm actually yet to be disappointed, and for a 38mm war game, the models are great and they're not actually that intimidating to paint at all. But it's time we move on to the cherry on the top of the cake for Conquest. The best part that I feel about Conquest, the resin. Because my god, I cannot express how much I love Para Bellum's resin. In my humble opinion, Para Bellum is in the top 5, if not the top 3 of resin producers in the entire mini industry. This doesn't include busts and stuff, because admittedly I've not had much experience with those, but if you're just looking at miniature games, miniature war games that you can play, Para Bellum has some of the best resin on the entire market. Not only is it packed with tons and tons of detail that just kind of boggles my mind that they can get it to such, so crisp, looking so good, but it is not brittle in any way, shape or form. I've yet to have any of the models actually snap or break when I'm trying to put it together, or even just clipping little bits off here or there. On top of that, the model actually comes pretty free of flash. There's very little you're going to have to clip off. There's no supports that you're going to have to clip off of any kind. It's just some really clean, really beautiful resin. Well, so the minute it's just their character models that are limited to resin, that's not actually always going to be the case. Now, you didn't hear this from me, but you see, if you were to go take a look at their catalogue for what's coming out in the first quarter of next year, you might find that there are some Spire kits coming out that are, entirely resin. And I'm talking, full 16-man units resin, because there's so much detail on those models. Para Bellum just decided, we're just going to cast them in resin, because why not? Now, we've spoken about the plastic kits, we've spoken about the resin kits. You might think we're actually done talking about the models for this game, but no, we're not. You see, reason number 5 on why I think you should play Conquest, models that get their own separate section, the monster models. One of the best parts, in my opinion, about all mini-games is the big old monster models that you can put on the field of battle to slowly crush the life out of all of your opponent's models. And Conquest, well, it fills this need thoroughly. Let's start by taking a look at the big model for the Spire, the Abomination. This is one of the kits that comes in the core box of the game, which alone makes it amazing value for money, but it gets better. This model is fully posable, so you can position it in whatever way you like. Want to make a diorama with it? Go ahead, super easy. Want to use it to decorate some bases? Yeah, sure. Basically, you can do whatever you want with this damn model. I can already tell you're going to need a better frame of reference than just the model all by its lonesome, so why don't we compare it to some of that Jimmy Space Chap's various models. First of all, here's the Abomination next to the humble Space Marine. Okay, that's an old school Space Marine. Let's compare him to one of the new Primaris Space Marines. Okay, they're getting bigger. Okay, how about now a Dreadnought? Okay, not bad. Let's see, what's another big model I could use? How about a Trigon? Now bear in mind this is a kit that normally retails for around about £40 by itself. So, do you want to compare that to the price of the Humble Giant, And just look at the detail the Abomination has by itself, prices are fun. Is the Abomination not up your alley? Well, then let's take a look at the humble Jotnar from the Nords. A Jotnar is a giant in simpler terms, and while it's not as big as the Abomination kit, this kit is still mighty impressive with a nice range of options that you can use to build it with. Once again, here it is next to some of Jimmy Space's finest. Now, if you couldn't tell already, I'm kind of going to be going over what each faction has, so let's move on to the wonderful Dwegum, or Dwarves in more common terms, and take a look at this big old fire-breathing boy. Look at this big bad boy. You can burn so many damn enemies with this thing. And then we have those huge-ass cannons that are just strapped to its back for extra destruction. Look at how happy these little Dwegum are to be riding this thing. Now, as you may have noticed, I don't actually have the model for this, and that's because the kit isn't actually coming out until March, because Para Bellum decided that the first rendition of the kit wasn't good enough. So they decided to push it back a year, re-sculpt the entire thing, and it's coming our way in March. So I know that's something I certainly can't wait for. Now, I can already hear you asking, what big monster do the 100 Kingdoms have? Well, let me tell you, who needs big monsters when you have the humble peasant? That's right, how can your opponent expect to beat wave after wave of loyal peons to the land who are willing to lay down their life in front of the throne to make sure their kingdom stands? No one. They can't stand a chance against all those peasants. Wave after wave, it's just unstoppable. So yeah, 100 Kingdoms, they don't need a big monster. But on the subject of loyalty, let's move on to the sixth and final reason why I think you should play Conquest: The Last Argument of Kings. Para Bellum actually cares about you. Now, I know this isn't really a novelty when it comes to smaller companies these days. It certainly feels like some of the bigger companies lose it as they get bigger, but I don't think that's kind of malicious or intentional. It just kind of happens when you get to a certain size, it feels. But Para Bellum genuinely care about their player base at the end of the day. On the rare chances that you're going to need to use their customer support, they should respond quickly and solve any problems that you might have. I mean, Leandros, the community manager, not only is he a champion at his job, but the way that they're just managing the Vanguard scheme and using the Vanguard scheme, they really do make you feel a part of the community. And even when you're not a Vanguard, just being a part of this community, you feel really included. You feel like not only does the company care about you, but the player base really kind of cares about you and look after one another. While rules changes to the game can be kind of slow, I mean, it's kind of to be expected, but Para Bellum does genuinely pay attention to kind of the gripes that the player base currently has and the problems that they're seeing crop up and actually fixes them. I mean, there are regular Q&As with both rules team and Leandros himself. If you need a question answered sooner than that, you can just drop an email to Konstantinos with your rules question and he'll answer it for you. Or you can, go to your friendly local Vanguard and chat to them about it and they should have the answers. There's really a lot of support for the player base out there and they really do want this game to do well, which isn't surprising. I mean, they've put, 7 years, I believe, at least, into kind of developing and growing this world. So of course they want it to be a success. Of course they want to see it do well. And they kind of understand that players are the key to that, and caring about your player base, communicating with your player base, letting them know what's happening. It's just, they seem to have kind of cracked the formula. Not that it's even, it's a game built by gamers, made for gamers, is what they always say. Because, they're all gamers at the end of the day. They grew up gamers, and it's kind of, they know how to talk to people because they know what they want to be treated like as a customer. So they treat you as they would want to be treated. And then of course there's just the amount of kind of control that they give the community. I mean, not only what I mentioned earlier with the living world in regards to how much control they kind of get over the lore, and also obviously the major one of the vote for which is going to be the 6th faction to come to Conquest, but they've actually kind of juggled around the release schedule for some of the existing factions because they've seen, oh, this unit needs to come out sooner, or people want this unit out sooner. And so they're bringing it out sooner because it's what the community wants. I mean, to me, that just really shows that they actually genuinely care about their player base. All of this openness and approachability really kind of helped squash any worries I had about, wasting money on the game or the game dying after 6 months to a year. I mean, they came out of quarantine with a larger community than they went into it with. And I personally feel that says a lot about the game. Obviously, a lot of people picked up new hobbies, but the fact that they picked up Conquest when there's, so many games out there kind of shows the appeal that the game has. And I mean, I'm seeing great growth in the community in regards to online, people joining all the time. Whenever I talk about it, people saying, oh, I just picked the game up the other day, I want to learn more about it. All this sort of stuff. I think the game genuinely just has a lot of potential, and one of the kind of key cruxes of that is the fact that Para Bellum genuinely cares about bringing a quality product to the consumer. That was 6 reasons I think you should play Conquest. Hopefully over the course of this video I've been able to convince you to at least look at the game, if not give it a shot. I mean, the starter set's a great value. If you're not wanting to invest that much into it, like I say, you could use proxies, just do it all for free until you get a decent feel of the game. Or you could even pick up one of the Conquest First Blood sets. First Blood is the kind of smaller skirmish game. It plays very similarly to the main game, so it will give you a good idea of how the main game works. Obviously it doesn't give you enough stuff to do a proper large game of Conquest, but it's certainly a good thing to pick up to give you a taster of, what the models are like and get a kind of gist of the universe and the game itself. As I mentioned earlier, all the rules for Conquest are available for free on their website, which can be found here and in the description down below. Down there you'll also find the links to the wonderful Facebook group that we have going for Conquest, as well as the Discord community. I really would recommend you just, click on them, sign up if either of those are your thing, and just get involved, and you'll see kind of what a great community Para Bellum's been able to build here. If you liked the video, I really would appreciate it if you could drop it a like and maybe even consider subscribing, as it really does help the channel out. Here is some content for your viewing pleasure, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for watching.